Hi, and welcome back to Authentically ADHD. I am your host, Carmen. I'm a late diagnosed ADHDer, an early childhood special educator, and a certified life and performance coach. I created this podcast to help as many ADHDers as I could to learn about your specific ADHD. I know that when I was late diagnosed, I was sent out the door with meds and no help. We have to do a lot of this work on our own, but if we join together in community, we can live more authentically and with more joy in our lives. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hey there, friend, and welcome back to Authentically ADHD. I'm your host, Carmen, and I'm so excited to share this topic with you because it's pretty much the basis of how we regulate our nervous system. So, why is it important to learn how to regulate your nervous system? The nervous system is the base of how we interact with the world, how we take in information and create and sustain relationships. So today we are talking about your window of tolerance. The window of tolerance is the base of the nervous system. So when I read about the window of tolerance in Tamara Rosier's new book, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, I knew immediately that I wanted to learn more and engage with that information and learn about my own window. Let me be the first to tell you that this affects each and every one of us, especially when you have ADHD. We are constantly being overwhelmed with emotions, thoughts, sensory input, etc. So being just a little bit more intentional about our own window of tolerance for just 1 week. It helped me to slow down, to recognize my basic needs, and it helped me to practice pausing, to feel my emotions. And in turn, that helps me regulate and practice stopping and thinking before acting. I know I've been referencing this book quite a bit, but it's a wealth of knowledge, and I just love to teach what I learn. So let's get started. So let's start with what the window of tolerance is. Think about 3 levels. The middle level is your window of tolerance. This is the zone where you feel confident and able to handle your stress and emotions effectively as you navigate through life. For those of us with ADHD, these windows tend to be more narrow, meaning we are more likely to swing quickly between the windows above and below that window of tolerance. These 2 windows are hyperarousal above us and hypoarousal below us. I did make a follow along, which I forgot to put a visual in. It says here I put a visual in it, but I forgot to put a visual. I'm going to put a visual in the follow along. And so I did make a visual. There will be one with an active processing follow along freebie in the show notes if you would like to use that. I'm a big fan of active processing. I actually actively processed the podcast I listened to this morning. Anyways, ADHDers have a smaller window of tolerance where we feel calm and in control of our emotions, navigating life, problem solving, and communicating effectively in rational reality. We are often either overstimulated, aka in hyperarousal, and or in hypoarousal, which is understimulation, which is the opposite. Hyperarousal relates to more like anxiety, hyperactivity, impulsivity, not being able to sit still, racing thoughts, and anything that makes you feel kind of amped up. Hypoarousal is understimulation. It can happen when we're bored, when we are lacking sleep, or when we're engaged in a mandatory task that does not interest us, and it can show up as being tired and inattentive symptoms and or shutting down. In her book, Tamara explains the highlights that we experience narrow windows of tolerance because of how our nervous system works differently. Here's the thing. ADHD has nothing to do with a deficit in attention. We have plenty of attention. It's the regulating and directing our attention that we struggle with. So, here is the thing. We have so much overwhelming stimuli coming in, thoughts, tasks, emotions, conversations, etc. We pay very little attention to each one because we don't know how to prioritize and choose one important thing that we want to focus on. So we can't focus on just one thing. And since so many things are coming in, we are a lot of times in hyperarousal until maybe sometimes, I don't know if this happens to you, sometimes it happens to me, when I'm overwhelmed, I go into hypoarousal and I completely shut down. Some people react by just shutting down or, I don't know, being just like that is their response, is the shutting down or getting tired. Here's why this matters. In order to stay in our window of tolerance, you have to be aware of and observe and understand your own nervous system in order to stay out of hyper and hypoarousal. When we're faced with all that stimuli, we tend to get overstimulated or completely shut down. Because our brain's regulatory system is much less consistent, this means it's much harder for us to stay balanced in our tolerance when faced with big, huge emotions. This is why we seem to overreact about small little things that other people would consider small and or zone out in super stressful situations. Have you ever screamed at your loved one when you couldn't find your keys? Or you got super tired after talking about a super heavy topic? These are examples of hyper and hypoarousal. Did you know that Patreon helps podcasters like me through listener support? That's right. By joining the Patreon, not only do you get so many of my resources, early release to episodes, and free coaching, you're also supporting the cost of creating the podcast that you love listening to. Let's start building our own ADHD community today in my Patreon. The link is down in the show notes. Hope to see you over there. Okay, now back to the show. So, we have to remember that our nervous systems are heightened in sensitivity to rejection, to criticism, and strong emotions. This can cause us to spiral into hyperarousal, leading to racing thoughts, sped up heart rate, irritability, emotional outbursts, or hypoarousal, where we feel just disconnected and numb. Here's a personal example. I know that I'm in hyperarousal when I snap at my students, when it feels like I'm filled with anger because I can't find my keys or I forgot about an appointment. And I know I'm in hypoarousal when I'm constantly having the urge to zone out, be in silence, or want to sleep, even when I've gotten enough sleep. For you, this may look different. You may get overwhelmed by simple tasks, snap at your loved ones, or just totally freeze in paralysis when you need to act on a task. In her book, Rosier emphasizes the importance of recognizing and identifying these patterns early. Ask yourself, when do you feel the most overstimulated? When do you tend to shut down? What triggers you? And how does your body react to each trigger? I want to put a disclaimer here that I am not a medical professional. I am teaching information I learned from a book. If this topic is bringing up strong responses, please take care of yourself. And if you haven't, seek support from a coach and or trauma-informed therapist. Even if this episode isn't bringing up huge emotions and maybe you have a therapist and or coach, I still want to emphasize that taking care of yourself is important. Our nervous system is tied to our trauma response, so just be self-aware and take care because I care about you. Okay, now that we have talked about what the window of tolerance is, what it looks like to be in your window versus below or above it, and what hyper and hypoarousal are, and how they play into our window, let's talk strategies. According to Rosier's book, there are practical steps to help widen your window of tolerance. And these include, number 1, body-based practices. Since ADHD affects how our nervous systems regulate our stress, grounding exercises can definitely help. Simple things like deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation can shift you back into your window. Number 2, mindful awareness. ADHD often means living in reaction mode, so pausing to notice what's actually happening in your body or environment helps to ground you. This is something I've definitely been working on myself, learning to pause before responding or reacting or taking action, especially in emotionally charged situations. Number 3, connection and communication. Rosier highlights that healthy relationships can help us regulate better. Co-regulation was something that she mentioned, and letting others know when you're struggling and asking for support. It can make a huge difference. Remember, it's okay to say, I need a moment to process this. And number 4, creating structure. This one's big. ADHD brains thrive on external scaffolding. Set up routines that minimize decision fatigue and give you more energy to stay in your tolerance zone. I also have a couple more other tips that I have used or my clients have used that have worked for them to stay in their window of tolerance. Create a sensory reset toolkit. So assemble a small kit with items that can help ground you using your senses. For example, a soft piece of fabric for touch, essential oil or a candle for smell, noise-canceling headphones or a calming playlist for noise, and a favorite photo or soothing image for sight. Use the kit when you're noticing that you're slipping out of the window of tolerance. Number 2, engage in cross-lateral movement. Perform activities that involve crossing the midline of your body, like tapping the opposite knee with your hands or drawing figure 8s in the air, or even just plus signs. This helps integrate your brain hemispheres and calms your nervous system. Use the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. This one helps me a lot, and because I can just remember it. It's 5 things that you can see, like name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This practice shifts away from the overwhelming emotion and reconnects you to the present moment. Number 4, try box breathing with visualization. Visualize drawing a box, or if you have paper in front of you, draw a box as you breathe. Inhale for 4 counts as you draw the top line. Hold for 4 counts as you draw the side down the side. Exhale for 4 counts as you draw the bottom. And hold for 4 counts as you connect the square. Pairing the exercise with the calming colors or shapes in your mind or on paper is for kind of an extra grounding effect. And number 5, micro-journaling for emotional release. Carrying around a small notebook or using your notes app to quickly just jot down how you're feeling and why you're feeling it can really help you later on to try and just actively process why you're feeling what you're feeling, and it can help you to stop, pause, and name how you're feeling. You can also name something you're grateful for or one action that you can take to feel better. Writing out your thoughts gives your emotions an outlet and helps recenter your mind. I would really love to know what helps you stay in your window of tolerance. Share your strategies with me on Instagram or social media, or send me a comment down on Spotify or email me on the show. Before we wrap up, let's revisit the key takeaway. Living with ADHD means your window of tolerance might be more narrow, but that doesn't mean you're powerless. It can feel really helpless, but by understanding your nervous system and using tools like mindfulness, structure, and connection, you can expand your capacity to handle life's ups and downs. Rosier's book, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family is such a valuable resource for navigating not just ADHD, but also relationships, emotions, and the everyday challenges we face. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. It's linked down below. Thanks for joining me today on Authentically ADHD. Don't forget to subscribe. Our memories suck, so if you found this episode helpful, make sure you subscribe and share it with someone you think might benefit. Remember, you're not alone in this. Together, we can thrive. That's all I have for now. Stay authentic, and we will talk soon.